Harrison Bauman. Joining us in this segment, we've got Dr. Kent Redfield, Professor Emeritus of Political Science with the University of Illinois Springfield. Dr. Redfield, good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Good morning, just fine.
And I'm glad to hear it. Hopefully the weekend and the nice weather that we've had will put us in a good mood for this topic of conversation today. That is, I don't know, it is probably not made for a whole lot of good moods across the country. We want to continue where we left off last month, and I'm glad we're doing so with the redistricting discussion. Tell us just a little bit about what's changed in that last month since we talked to you, Dr. Redfield.
Well, we had the Texas legislators from Texas come to Chicago. They were trying to, make it impossible for the Texas legislature to have a quorum so they could pass a redistricting bill, a congressional redistricting bill that would shift, potentially would give the Republicans the possibility of picking up 5 more seats from Texas in the 2026 election. So, the legislators have gone back to Texas. They've done another special session. There's a map that is about to be signed, was passed by the legislature, that's going to create new districts, for the election in 26. And, now the ball is in California. And California has a redistricting commission that is independent of the legislature, a bipartisan commission. The governor has, and the Texas legislature, are putting a referendum on the fall ballot in Texas that would temporarily suspend that redistricting commission and allow the legislature to go in and redraw the boundaries, just like they redrew the districts in Texas, in ways that would create a bigger advantage for the Democrats in California. So, that's, whether we'll have other states that will join with this, whether that referendum is going to actually pass, and it's going to be a vote of the citizens in California. Nobody knows. So that's up in the air. We do know nothing's going to happen in Illinois. We've only got 3 Republican districts. They're very, very solidly Republican because the Democrats, put all the Republicans in these safe districts downstate so they could create some competitive Democratic districts. And there are no spare Democrats in these 2 districts. One in the Springfield down to St. Louis. The 13th, or the one that comes out of Rockford and through the Quad Cities. If you took Democratic votes out of those districts and tried to, switch a Republican downstate district, you'd have to move Republican votes back into the Democratic districts. That would hurt the Democratic districts. That would be worse for the Democrats than it would be for the Republican. So nothing's going to happen in short term.
Sorry, Red.
Oh yeah, no. I just nothing. We're not going to change. The boundaries you've got are not going to change till 2032.
My concern, or I guess my question for you, would be: nothing's happening here in Illinois because really you can't make much more happen in Illinois. If in fact you could make it hurt instead, if you are on the Democratic side of the aisle. Is it possible that other red and blue states, the likes of which join this particular fight right now? Do you see other states potentially getting involved in this?
Yeah, there's been talk in terms of on the Democratic side, New York particularly, but Massachusetts. Then there's been some discussion of Ohio and Indiana. We're talking about 3 states here that there's either Democratic governor and Democratic legislature or Republican governor or Republican legislature with a partisan process like you have in Illinois or Texas. And so we could still see more changes And while Illinois has primaries that are, early in the spring, you could be making changes in other states, next spring because their primaries wouldn't be until the summer or in some states, the early fall. So this is going to be a very fluid situation.
Well, thank you for name dropping those states because I had not quite heard which ones. Now, New York being in the mix there does not surprise me, but I was not certain of what states those might be. There is another major development in this that I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about. There's a Fair Maps Illinois. This is a nonpartisan group that has announced some additional things when it comes to what's going on right now in the state of Illinois itself. What is that major development you can tell us about?
Sure. So you can amend the state constitution through a citizens initiative that changes the languages, the structure and process of the legislature. So there's a very limited citizens initiative. You can't make laws or you can't have a citizens petition to amend the Constitution except in this one narrow incidence. And so you've got a group that is trying to gather petitions to put a proposal on the ballot that would change the process, but it wouldn't take effect again until after the federal census in 2030 for the 2032 election. So this is not an immediate thing. There have been two previous attempts to use this process to change the Constitution in terms of how we do redistricting. Both of them failed. One with a problem with getting enough signatures, but the other one was the language was not carefully drawn, and the state Supreme Court threw it out. So what's being proposed is a commission that would take the governor and the legislature completely out of the process. You would have a 12-member commission appointed by the legislative leaders, but that commission would then come up with a map, or if they didn't, there would be drawing a name out of a hat, which is what happens in Illinois if the legislature and the governor can't fix it. The major point of this is it would bar the people drawing the maps from taking voting history, voting registration into account. So you couldn't look at them. You couldn't say, you couldn't do political gerrymanders essentially. And you would have to pay special attention to county boundaries, city boundaries. So it's essentially it's a negative approach. It says you can't have partisan gerrymanders, but then it's a pretty sterile, equal population. Don't split up cities. Don't split up counties. There's no kind of affirmative. This is what we want representation to mean, and this is how to get it. But again, this takes 300,000 signatures. Last time around, $4 million. So whether it happens or not, but again, the thing is, we don't have a good answer to how to get rid of gerrymandering and what to replace it with in terms of getting rid of politics.
So by what I'm taking out of this is they're looking for a clear, concise map that looks good as a map, but not necessarily based on voter history and previous information, as it can't be used in the two previous attempts. It hasn't gone that way or the way that they would hope so. But it's also going to potentially take the governor out of redistricting to try and mitigate political gerrymandering, but it's not exactly how folks think it might go. Is that roughly, did I take away what I need to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is, we're reacting to the extreme partisan gerrymanders, but it's not clear that, what this actually would produce other than you wouldn't be able to figure out who benefited from the map until after it was, drawn and became law.
So we're going to have to hold on to this until we talk to Dr. Redfield until about 2032 is the sound of it then. So, well, Dr. Redfield, let's go ahead and take ourselves a break because there's something else very pertinent and important that we would like to talk about when we return. We'll preview that in just one moment. But we're joined by Dr. Kent Redfield, Professor Emeritus of Political Science with the University of Illinois Springfield here on the WTIM Morning Show.
Your information station, WTIM.
Set your sights on a strong school year. SIU Center for Family Medicine in Taylorville is here to help your child start smart with a back-to-school or sports physical. Healthy kids learn better and play harder. Appointments are quick and convenient, so you can check it off your list with confidence. Call 217-545-8000 to schedule. That's 217-545-8000 or click their icon on TaylorvilleDailyNews.com. SIU Center for Family Medicine in Taylorville, moving health forward for you.
Honeymoon, here we come. Where's our car?
It's been stolen.
We'll call our insurance agent. I'm right here.
Oh, hey, Jen. You got our invite.
Love the dress.
Are we covered for this?
Of course. That's why you chose auto owners. We work together to get the right coverage. So when the unexpected happens, you know you're covered.
That's simple human sense.
Call me, Casey McClure at McClure-Helberg Insurance, 125 West Poplar in Taylorville at 824-2266.
The Farm Progress Show is coming back to Illinois August 26th through 28th in Decatur. Representatives from Shelby Electric Cooperative and several other Illinois electric co-ops will be on hand. Look for their exhibit located on Lot 217, which is on 2nd Street between Central Progress and East Progress Avenue. Look for the big American flag hanging between two 60-foot utility poles. Stop by and enter for a chance to win electric e-bike. Watch a live safety demo. See a lineman climb a 60-foot utility pole and so much more. Hope to see you there.
The Celebration Committee welcomes you to the 68th Annual Raymond Celebration, August 28th, 29th, and 30th. 3 days of excitement. Posse Bingo, Theme Bingo, pageants, the Kitty Parade Thursday at 6, and the Grand Parade Saturday at 6. Elite Event Services brings fun for the kids. Bounce houses, Velcro wall, mechanical bull, and more. Baking contest, pickleball, and the water ball tournament backed by popular demand. Join us at the beer tent with food, live bands, and support the Land of Lincoln Honor Flight. It's all happening in Raymond. Don't miss it.
Of the 2024 construction projects by Christian County businesses, those businesses saved an estimated $370,000 in sales tax by utilizing the county's enterprise zone. Through the efforts of the Christian County Economic Development Corporation over the past 20-plus years to establish and grow the county's enterprise zone, new and existing businesses in the county can save significantly in sales taxes. Find out how they can help your business by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com. The Christian County Economic Development Corporation is moving Christian County forward.
Pastor Brian Moore here from Locust Grove Church near Assumption. We are alive and so worth the drive. Find directions to our church and watch our video podcast by clicking our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
With over 8 hours a day of agriculture programming weekdays and 2 hours on Saturdays, WTIM AM, FM, and online is your ag information station. Listen by tuning in on air or online and listen to WTIM Ag podcasts anytime.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to the WTIM Morning Show here on your information station. It's brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm your host, Grayson Bauman. Joining us in this segment, we've got Professor Emeritus of Political Science, Kent Redfield, with us here today. Dr. Redfield, we talked a lot about continuing our conversation in the redistricting discussion and how that's going and all the changes with that. We want to kind of turn our attention, though, to President Trump and the potential for federalizing troops with the National Guard already being done in Washington, D.C., talks of taking it even to Chicago. What are you making of this situation as it is now?
Well, I mean, clearly there have been plans made to, take what's been going on in Washington, D.C. and move it to other cities. And Chicago seems to be at the top of the list. The governor and the attorney general of Illinois are going to have a press conference this afternoon, and then they're going to argue that this would not be appropriate for Illinois, that there's no kind of national emergency in Chicago that would justify the federal government using its power. Now, this is a very different situation than what's happened in Washington, D.C., because the National Guard is controlled by the president. There's no governor. That's a federal jurisdiction. And so, and the president essentially can, temporarily even take over the police force in Washington, D.C. So it's a very different situation than when you're talking about states. States have governors, they control the National Guard, and cities are creatures of the state. Chicago is part of Illinois, and so this gets to be a battle over exactly how much power the federal government has, and can they identify in some kind of emergency that you can use the federal power. So the key things to think about here, there's an Insurrection Act back from the 1807 that allows the federal government to essentially keep, put down threats to the national government. There's also a Posse Comitatus Act from 1878 that says you can't use the military in domestic law enforcement. And so exactly, what triggers that? Well, when can you use the Insurrection Act and when can you not? It was a court battle in Los Angeles. It certainly will be a court battle in Illinois if we get that, if this actually happens. And so there's a potential for this to be an ongoing thing, city to city, depending on what the federal courts rule is a legitimate or illegitimate use of the governor's the president's power to nationalize the Illinois National Guard, to federalize Illinois National Guard.
So I would like to try and recap again here. It's much easier to do in Washington, D.C. It's a federal jurisdiction, so the president does have that power to do so. You get into the conversation with the states, well, then it's states versus federal rights then, or in that regard. But there's two conflicting, we'll call them amendments, that are on the board there. One taking us back all the way to the early 1800s, then the mid 1800s. And who are we going to decide is right on either or of those? Is there going to be something that's brought to the federal court or the Supreme Court, that is, and that might be able to make this make a little more sense for people?
Yeah, I think the federal courts have to weigh in terms of, exactly when can you use the Insurrection Act as an exception to the Posse Comitatus Act. I mean, we have done this, we had urban riots in the 60s where the governors requested federal troops. We have situations where Mississippi refused to enforce federal law to integrate the University of Mississippi, and President Kennedy federalized the National Guard to essentially integrate the Mississippi, the University of Mississippi, because the state government was, violating the civil rights of the students that they were trying to admit to the University of Mississippi. So there's a long history of this. It is not cut and dried, and it may come down to Illinois and other states making their case in front of the Supreme Court, and the federal government making counter arguments that things are so bad that crime is so bad that these kinds of actions are justified.
It's going to be an interesting fight all the way up at the top, potentially. Well, Dr. Redfield, thank you for joining us here today and filling us in on both of these two issues right now.
Oh, certainly. Always good to talk.
Always good on this end as well. Dr. Kent Redfield, Professor Emeritus of Political Science with the University of Illinois Springfield, here on WTIM.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville. 96.1 FM Taylorville. 107.5 FM Shelbyville. 107.9 FM Pena Nokomis.
President Trump's crackdown on crime in Washington, D.C. And as of today, some